Aloha, and welcome to the Genie Show. My name is Genie Joseph, and I'm really glad you're out there with us because we have a really important show, and I think you'll really find it fascinating. There's an incredible mystery happening on the north shore of Kauai, and we're going to find out exactly what's going on and what you need to know about it. I've got some really special guests tonight with me. I have Terry Lilley. He is a marine biologist, and I have Les Iczkovitz, and he's an environmental attorney. So, aloha and welcome to the show.
All right, thank you for inviting us in.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and thanks for flying over.
Yeah, I know. It's a short hop, actually. It's kind of neat going back and forth between both the islands.
Yes. Yeah. So now you've got a pretty interesting reputation yourself for being underwater. What is it you do underwater?
You know, everyone's been asking that, including my mom for many years. I probably spend more time underwater than most people I've ever known. I've got about 5,000 hours of scuba diving underwater.
Okay.
And I started surfing when I was 2 years old with my father.
Wow.
He gave me my first Hawaiian sling when I was 4 and said, "Dinner's that way, go catch it."
Oh, wow.
And I scuba dive, surf, or snorkel pretty much every day.
That's great.
Yeah.
Excellent. And Les, how'd you get involved in environmental law, and why is that important to you?
Well, I first got involved in environmental law in law school. I actually had the good fortune of having a professor who was brilliant and who had this U.S. Supreme Court case. So I actually researched and co-wrote the original U.S. Supreme Court brief on the endangered species.
Wow.
The case that really made the term well known around the world. And basically this law was used to stop the completion of a dam because it was the critical habitat for this fish. And then later when they found out that after the Supreme Court stopped the project, they had a committee that was formed, and they ruled unanimously that this little fish was more valuable than this dam that they had spent $120 million on.
Wow.
So that's where I started, was in law school doing environmental work.
Excellent, excellent. Now, Terry, I know you're really involved. You're very concerned about something that's happening on the north shore of Kauai. Tell us what's going on.
You know, one of the neat things about being a biologist, is basically just being an observer. The old kahunas that were on these islands for 1,800 years, well, they had a fishing kahuna. They had a person that sat there all day long and studied the reefs, went out in the water, fished, monitored the fish, the populations, the movements of the fish. That's kind of just what I've been doing. I started a high-definition video series, Education for Kids, here in Hawaii, and one of my videos is called The World's Guide to Hawaiian Reef Fish. My goal was to go around each one of the islands, starting with Kauai, and video document with high-def movies every reef system around each island and video each individual marine creature nighttime and daytime. I've got hundreds of hours out at nighttime. In the process of going around Kauai for the last 7 years for 1,000 hours underwater and videoing all the beautiful marine life, I found some corals that were dying from some kind of unknown infection. I'd never seen it before. I've been to Fiji, I've been to Indonesia, Africa, all around the world studying coral reefs and reefs, and something was really off here. And I ended up, I'd been doing some work with Greta Abbey at the University of Hawaii at Coconut Island. And I talked to Greta, and she had sent me an email back. This was about 2 years ago now, year and a half. She sent me an email saying that we're tracking in Kaneohe Bay here on Oahu a new type of bacteria that is devastating some of the reefs in Kaneohe Bay.
Okay.
And she sent me some pictures of it, and I pulled up my videos and immediately pulled out pictures and sent her back to what I was seeing in Kauai. And Greta, her email back to me was, "Oh my God," because they thought this was isolated to just one spot on Oahu.
Right.
And since then, this disease has just absolutely gone out of control on the north shore of Kauai.
Now, not everybody knows, not everyone's from Hawaii, so let's just explain what a coral reef is. I mean, you consider a coral reef a species? Is it alive? What exactly is a coral reef, and why is it important to the environment?
That's a great question, and people usually don't understand that. By the way, a coral, when you see a piece of coral in a store and it's white, it's already been bleached.
Okay.
That hard coral is just the calcium shell.
Okay.
When I teach my kid classes, I talk about it as apartment condominiums.
Okay.
Okay. Now, each little coral polyp is a live animal. It's an invertebrate.
Okay.
And that's like the people living in each one of the little apartment complexes.
Okay.
Every time a new little coral grows up, it builds a new little apartment complex over the top. Each one of the coral animals has a vegetable garden that it grows. It's really cool. Some corals are purple because they grow algae in the coral that's purple.
Okay.
Some corals are green because they grow green algae. So it's a symbiotic union between the algae and the coral polyp.
Okay.
The coral polyp basically is like a little upside down jellyfish with little tentacles, and they filter feed when the water goes over. The algae produces, through sunlight, byproducts that the coral eats also. Now, these
Very efficient.
Very efficient. And some of these corals are 1,000 years old, 2,000 years old, and may have 1 million little coral animals in this big structure.
Wow.
Now, the coral reefs do a number of things. One thing they do is they stabilize, basically glue together the entire reef. So the reef doesn't fall apart because of the surf and crumble and be deposited up on the beach.
Right.
The other thing the corals do is the corals cause the surf to break, so the impact of the waves aren't tearing up the coastline and washing everyone's house out to sea.
Right. I think that was one of the issues in New York, that recent storm. They said they had a better...
A barrier reef
Yeah.
out there of some kind. In Hawaii here and in other places in the world, we have lots of famous surf spots, you know, Waimea and Sunset Beach and those places. Well, a lot of those waves break good because as the corals grow on the reef, they cause a drag on the underside of the wave.
Okay.
So all those little coral fingers sticking up cause the wave to drag and then it to pitch and make a good barrel, everything that all of us surfers like to see.
Right.
If the coral was gone, the waves would crumble more and they would move across the reef and they'd be breaking right up on people's houses. So the coral reefs protect our coastline.
So we really need them. We have to protect
Have to
them.
have them. But the biggest thing by far, people don't realize that, the ocean is 79% of our environment here in Kauai, or in Hawaiian Islands. 79% of the world. The ocean produces over half of the oxygen we breathe.
Wow.
This algae in the ocean, like a rainforest, produces oxygen that we breathe. The coral is also like the rainforest. All of the baby fish, the alakuma crabs, the ali'i fish, the baby uhu, all of the fish and all the marine life has their babies, and the babies live and hide in these coral structures. If you kill the coral, you're going to kill all the fish. You're going to kill the crabs and the lobsters and the other marine life. These animals are fed on by the bigger fish, like the ulua. And then as you go out to sea, these creatures are fed on even by bigger fish, like the ahi and mahi-mahi and ono. So the coral reef is the rookery. It's the baby farm for all the sea creatures.
Wow.
You kill the coral, you start killing the entire sea life here, and it would eventually make it incredibly unhealthy for humans even to live here.
Wow. So how serious is the problem now? I mean, how much in danger is this coral reef in Kauai?
You know, this is again where just an observer comes in. I have my high definition underwater movie camera going like this. I usually like to say, don't listen to me. Look at the footage. It's really quite simple.
Right.
I've done over 1,000 scuba dives on the North Shore of Kauai. These are just facts. In the last year and a half, this bacterial disease has killed and eaten more than 1 million corals along the North Shore of Hawaii, or Kauai.
Wow.
It's not affecting the reefs on the South Shore. The South Shore of Kauai is still relatively healthy. The North Shore, everywhere you go, Ke'e Beach all the way to Anahola, everywhere you go, the corals are diseased, and at any given time, 5 to 10% of the reef has active corals that are diseased. The thing that's really bad here that no one's ever seen is you take an old coral this big that's 50 years old, like a beautiful rice coral. This disease is a bacteria, and it eats the coral at 2 to 4 inches a week.
Wow.
It actually eats the little coral animal, and the coral completely dies.
Wow.
So you have a 20 to 50-year-old coral that gets killed by this disease in a month.
Wow.
And I have hundreds of thousands of these corals on time-lapse, high-depth video dying of this disease.
Now, is it reversible? I mean, can we treat it with any kind of antibiotic, or do we know?
Absolutely, but it's way too late. 2 years ago, when I first brought this to the attention of the authorities and the university and all the scientists, if we would have jumped on it right then, I was only finding maybe 500 to 1,000 infected corals along the North Shore. The University of Hawaii, Dr. Greta Abbey came over, and we worked at Anini Beach, and she actually developed a resin that's like a fire break for a forest fire that she can apply to the diseased coral and stop the disease from spreading.
Okay.
And it works. And we have time-lapse video of this for over a year. The problem is now there's millions of corals infected. Matter of fact, there's so many corals infected along 20 miles of coastline, you, me, and 1,000 other people could never even count them all.
Wow.
So there is no way we're going to treat the individual sick corals and do any good. We need to find out what's causing this disease to occur along our coastline. And then maybe we can utilize that to keep this from happening elsewhere in Hawaii.
So let's just, when you look at it from a legal point of view, what can we do?
Well, there's lots that you can do in the sense that there are laws that are supposed to protect the water, the Clean Water Act. There's also endangered species issues. The Endangered Species Act comes to play. But the area that I'm trying to focus on is trying to get the parties involved, the agencies, the state and federal agencies, to acknowledge the problem and work together towards a solution. Because I, as a lawyer, have two choices. There's something called the citizen suits provisions in these acts that allow me to basically put them on notice. I can put the EPA and Fish and Wildlife on notice, as well as the people who have done things wrong, i.e. they've done projects that have dumped mud into the ocean, which is illegal. But if they don't respond to the letter, then I can sue them. I can, on behalf of environmentalists like Terry and organizations, I can sue them under these acts, and if I win, then I make a lot of money. But the problem with taking that tack is that they then spend all of their resources defending what their agencies didn't do all these years.
Right.
And that doesn't help the environment.
Right.
So if it has to go there, it may have to go there. But I've been working on the theory that if we get everybody to acknowledge the problem, and instead of spending our time focusing on blame, focus on what's the solution. I mean, there's going to be an accounting, there's going to be data, we're going to look at what caused all of this, what caused the depletion of the reef and the immune system going down. But my goal is to really try to get people to work together, acknowledge the problem, and work towards a solution, because that's what's in the best interest of the reef and the Kauai North Shore.
See, what Les has been able to see over the last year and a half, 2 years with me, and he's been back and forth to Kauai a bunch of times, and it's what I brought Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard in person on our boat out in Honolulu Bay, and she actually went up the river. We showed her all kinds of what we feel is illegal digging and development in the Honolulu River, for one example. And we showed her the mud and toxins flowing into the river. We took our boat, we followed the mud right into Honolulu Bay. She jumped overboard, I took her down to the bottom, took high-def video, and pointed right to the corals covered in mud and the corals dying of this really bad bacterial disease. One of the things that we think is something is different on the North Shore of Kauai than it is on the rest of the Hawaiian Islands. It's not the disease spreading. On the North Shore of Kauai, the resistance of the corals is going down.
Okay.
Remember how a long time ago when the AIDS virus first came out, people were dying of pneumonia, tuberculosis, all of these things. They didn't realize at the time what they were dying of was the AIDS was compromising their immune system, and then these other things came in and killed them. We're finding these bad bacteria are probably natural on the reef. Something is lowering the resistance of the corals on the North Shore of Kauai, and it may be coming from land.
Okay.
And what we're finding out is that people that are altering the wetlands and digging in the rivers and using pesticides, even genetically engineered animals and plants, may be causing the reefs to be stressed where this bacteria now can take over.
Okay.
That's what we got to find out.
Right.
The more that we work together with the government agencies, private people, landowners, even the big companies, the faster we're going to figure out what's causing the resistance of the reef to lower, where we could potentially stop the disease if it's possible at this point in time.
Have you seen any bacteria in the mud, before it gets ripped? So we know that the bacteria is in the mud, and then the mud is now going into the water. So we know.
Yes, we have. We've done studies so far in the Honolulu wetland area where we've found extremely high levels of all kinds of toxins. We've found high levels of heavy metals, arsenic, lead, chromium, all this kind of stuff. Found outrageously high bacteria levels, although it is not the same species of bacteria that's eating the coral. We have a mystery going on.
Okay.
Everyone from, believe me, the NOAA folks came over, the USGS, everyone's kind of going, the more we know, the more we don't know here.
Right.
There's a mystery. We need help figuring out the mystery from all kinds of different people. We simply don't know what is causing this coral disease to be so devastating, and we probably only have a 2 to 3 year window to figure it out. But it's not necessarily coming from any one land-based problem.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's bigger than that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Okay. So what do you think are the first steps? Either one of you. What do we need to do as the public? What do we have to do?
I'll say one, and then I'll let him fill in on this. And I kind of laugh. I kind of go, look at how archaic this is. Okay. I want to tell you how archaic this is. Do you know how many people are studying this coral disease on the north shore of Kauai right now?
No.
None, because I'm here.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
I'm the only guy. I've been doing it for free every day of my life for the last 3 years. We are treating this as a whole. I am somewhat ashamed of what's going on here. That third world countries that have no money spend more money on taking care of their reefs than we are in Kauai. The government, the county government, spends millions of dollars on building sidewalks. The state government spend millions of dollars on all kinds of development projects going on all over the place. We've asked them to put money into this disease study. We need a number of scientists in the water every day.
Right.
We need to have all of the laboratories set up on the North Shore of Kauai so we can finish doing the DNA testing. Most important, we need to do the toxicology studies at all these infected sites to see what chemicals are actually in the sediment or on the reef killing the coral. We basically need an army. The cavalry needs to come in here. I'm the scout.
Right. Right.
Okay, I found the bad guys.
Yes. Okay.
Now the cavalry needs to come in here and fight the war. Dr. Work from the USGS, Greta Abbey from the University of Hawaii, these folks have even come over to the North Shore of Kauai on their own time because there wasn't any money in their budget to come over here.
Yeah.
That's how dedicated they are. We need about 100 of each one of them right now, and if we don't, we're going to lose the reefs.
Right.
And someone's going to say, like before September 11th, why didn't you folks all connect the dots?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, this is our September 11th, and we're trying to connect the dots right now. We need some help doing it.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So you need some brain power. You need some
Brain
water
power, and we need some funding. And we're
Yeah.
not talking about a massive amount of money. Les could probably tell you clients he knows that have lost more money in the last year here in Oahu
Right.
than like I said, there's more money going out the door in every direction. We need about 1/100th of that, but if we don't get the right funding soon, we're going to lose the reefs, and it could be an absolute huge disaster.
Okay. So Les, what do you think? What's your laundry list?
I think the list really has to focus on people letting their Congress and the local politicians know. There's a petition that we just put online for I think it's called Save Honolulu, and basically it's all about encouraging people to support Terry Lilley and his efforts, because he's been out there on his own for 2 years, on his own nickel, just doing everything he can to let people know. And unfortunately, it's taken too long for people to finally respond, but now they're responding.
Okay.
Now there's no doubt there's the disease, but I promised Terry if we can get 25,000 people to sign the petition, that he'll get everything he wants, because politicians listen to people. And if you can get 25,000 people saying, support Terry Lilley, then you're going to see a lot more support. So that's what I think really has to happen, is we need to get more support from the people.
And I only want to correct you just a teeny bit. Don't support me, support us. This is, I try to explain it seriously like a
Well, I
big...
should say Terry Lilley and others.
Yeah. This is, I put it like this. We're going into the World Series right now. Okay. We need a baseball team. We need a catcher, we need a batter, and we need an umpire, first baseman, second baseman. We're going to need experts from all these arenas working together and funded as a unit to be able to win the World Series here, and that's to figure out what's going on the North Shore of Kauai. So I try often to say to people, kind of take me out of the subject here. I'm just a guy out there that loves being in the water, and I hold the video camera and I document what's going on. There are people in Hawaiian Islands here that are so unbelievably intelligent. We have all the technology here. We have all the money here. We can make this the most world-class, turn it around, the most world-class coral study ever been done. We can figure it out, even if we have to restore the reefs down the road, and we can make it a model on how we cleaned up the North Shore of Kauai. It's a gift to the rest of the world. But it's got to be a team effort. That's what's so highly important. And shows like this are really important, because you may have a listener out there that goes, wow, I would like to help out with the testing, or I would like to help out with the dive studies. That's what it's doing. We're getting to the people, and there may be somebody on Kauai watching this right now and say, I got an extra $100,000 sitting in the bank. I'll donate it to the nonprofit. We have famous musicians that are piping up now saying, well, would you like us to do a benefit concert? And I go, yeah, way cool. So we need that participation from a lot of people as a community to deal with this problem.
Good. Good. So anything else you want to add to that, Les?
Yeah, and fundamentally what we really need is everybody on the same page also. You know, because right now, these scientists there's no doubt, they've produced 3 reports. There's an epidemic going on, the reefs are dying. For some reason, unfortunately, there are people on Kauai who still don't believe it's as bad as it is. They think this, coral reefs die, come and go, and it's just something that's happening. And they don't realize this is really a catastrophic event that's taking place. So the thing that's most important is for everybody on Kauai to go in the water, go into Kalihiwai, Anini, and Waipa, and
I'll take them
Adelaide.
out, show anyone that wants to see this in person. I mean, it's pretty cool. I offered to take out all the government officials throughout the Hawaiian Islands, the chairman of the DLNR, anyone from the governor's office, the EPA, everybody. Not one person offered to want to go out and even look at it except Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. And she jumped all over it, and she saw the whole thing, and I have a lot of faith that she's doing some really good stuff right now and putting together a package to help out here. It's called observation. How did the Hawaiians know so much about the weather before we had the weather report and satellites? How did they know that the moi were going to move from this side of the island to this side of the island in a week from now? They knew that by direct observation. And so I'd like to bring back into this project direct observation. As of right now, the people are spending money doing direct observation from their office in Lihue. And that's not going to solve the problem, I hate to tell you. Unless their pencil's diseased. So we got to get people boots on the ground, in the water, direct observation.
Fins on the feet.
Fins on the feet, absolutely. And there's tons of ways people can help.
I mean, there are people still on Kauai who, because of water quality studies, saying, well, the water quality studies say it's good, then the reefs are healthy. But they haven't been in the water to look at the reefs in the last 5 years. And I'm sorry, looking at a dead reef is going to trump a water quality study every day of the week. And that's what isn't being done enough. So.
And we have a residual problem here, real quick, that we've done survey work for a long time on coral reefs. And you go down and you lay a tape measure and you count corals, you see how many are sick and whatever. Now, we do those survey works usually 1 week in the spring and 1 week in the fall. In the past, it's taken years and years and years for a coral reef to die. So if you studied it once a year for a little while, half hour, an hour, you'd catch a problem. This bacteria disease kills entire coral reefs. An entire bay, Kalihiwai, died in the last 6 months. The entire bay, every coral. Okay, so if you only did survey work in the spring and in the fall, you would miss this entire reef die-off.
Yeah.
So this is new. This is the new world we're talking about here. It's like, didn't everything change after September 11th?
Yeah.
Well, again, I call this our September 11th, but our opportunity. We have to study these reefs throughout Hawaii, even the really healthy ones. We need to be out there documenting them because these new type diseases, because of the rising sea levels and the rising acid levels, the ocean is being weakened right now everywhere. So there's more stress going on. So a disease now can take over a reef in a matter of months versus years. So we have to train our people better, and we got to take a different attitude in monitoring our nearshore environment here.
Well, good. So why don't you just give the folks your website so they can get in touch with you?
You bet. It's underwater 2 web, and it's the number 2. So underwater, the number 2 web.com. Now that links directly to Hawaii-Reef, and that is donated with the University of Hawaii, USGS, and myself. And it's a coral disease web that updates the public every week with every study, pictures of the disease, all of the movies, and then that will link to Les's page and also to our nonprofit page. So
Great.
people can help by donating money, they can donate their time, they can donate their expertise, but more important than any of that, I would like everyone to call their congresswomen, congressmen, politicians, and say, we don't want to see the reefs in Kauai die. Come on, let's get our act together, guys, and
do
get
something.
get a little more proud in our
Yeah.
environment here. So I think that's as much as important as anything.
Good. Well, I want to thank my guests. I have Les Iczkovitz, and he is an environmental attorney, and Terry Lilley, a marine biologist fighting the good fight out there in the North Shore of Kauai. And I hope that you'll be inspired to write to your congressmen, write to your elected officials, and let them know that this is an issue that you care about and you want to see them get involved and take the right actions. So we'll say aloha to you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Aloha.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Good to have you.
And aloha to the reef.
Yes, aloha to the reef.